You can outrun a bear. You can swim away from a shark. But a spider the size of a coin, sitting perfectly still on the other side of a room, has genuinely made grown adults cry, sleep in their car and refuse to go back inside their own house. And here's the thing nobody tells you. That fear isn't the problem. Fear is the clue. And what it's pointing to says a lot more about you than any spider ever could. Today we're talking about the psychology of people who are scared of spiders. And I know what you're thinking. It's just a phobia. People are scared of spiders. That's it. But that's not actually it. Because when psychologists started pulling this apart, what they found underneath the spider fear wasn't really about spiders at all. It was about how certain brains are wired, what happened early in life, and a survival system that is still running in the background long after it stopped being useful. And the really fascinating part, people who are terrified of spiders often share a whole set of other psychological traits that have nothing to do with bugs. So if you've ever screamed at a photo of a spider, if someone in your life turns into a completely different person the second they spot one, or if you've always been a little curious about why this specific fear is so overwhelming, this one's for you. Let's start with what's going on inside the brain when someone who's scared of spiders actually sees one, because it is not what most people think. There's this part of your brain called the amygdala. Think of it like a smoke detector. Its whole job is to scan the environment for danger and set off the alarm before your thinking brain even has a chance to catch up in most people. The amygdala does a quick check. Spider, small, not moving, probably fine. But in people with a serious spider phobia, that smoke detector is wired differently. It goes off before they've even fully processed what they're looking at, before their eyes have finished sending the signal, before any conscious thought has formed. The alarm is already blaring, and once that alarm goes off, the body does exactly what it's supposed to do. Heart rate spikes, muscles tighten, the stress hormone cortisol floods the system, breathing gets shallow. Some people freeze, some people run, some people just scream. But here's what's really interesting though. Researchers found that people with spider phobia don't just react faster to spiders. Their brains actually detect spiders and visual clutter faster than people without the phobia. In studies where images were flashed on a screen so quickly that people couldn't consciously see them, the phobic brains still lit up. They weren't overreacting. Their threat detection system had basically been calibrated to make spiders the top priority. And that's the first thing worth understanding. This isn't a weakness. It isn't irrational. It is a very efficient brain doing exactly what it was trained to do. The question is, who trained it and when? This is the part that I think most people get completely wrong. The common belief is that spider phobias come from a traumatic experience. Someone got bitten. A spider fell on them as a kid. Something dramatic happened, and for some people, yes, that's true. But for a huge number of people with serious spider fear, nothing dramatic happened at all. Because here's what the research actually shows. One of the most common ways spider phobia develops is through what psychologists call observational learning, which is a clinical way of saying you watch someone else react. Maybe your mom screamed every time she saw a spider. Maybe your older sibling made a huge performance out of it. Maybe you were small, you looked up at the adult who was supposed to tell you what was safe and what wasn't, and that adult was standing on a chair, completely losing it over a spider. And your brain did exactly what young brains are supposed to do. It filed that information away. Spider equals extreme danger. Got it. You never had to touch one. You never had to get hurt. Your nervous system just took someone else's fear and adopted it as its own. And this is important because it means the fear often has almost nothing to do with anything that ever happened to you directly. It was inherited. It was absorbed. It was learned in a moment you might not even remember. There's also a second path, and this one is quieter. And this one is some develop spider phobia simply from a general baseline of anxiety. When your nervous system is already running hot, when you already have a lower threshold for feeling unsafe, It tends to attach itself to something visible and external, something that feels like a reasonable explanation for the discomfort you already feel. The spiders are the perfect candidate for that. They move unpredictably. They appear without warning. They're in places you don't expect. For an anxious nervous system looking for something to organize its fear around, spiders make a lot of sense. Which means, for a lot of people, the fear of spiders is actually the anxiety speaking. The spider is just what it chose to speak through. So why spiders? Why not chairs? Why not lamps? Why doesn't anybody have a crippling fear of pillows? There's an idea in evolutionary psychology called biological preparedness. And the theory goes like this. Humans aren't born with a clean slate. We're born with certain fears already loaded in, pre-installed by evolution because our ancestors, who were afraid of the right things, survived long enough to have children. And those who weren't, spiders were, for a very long time, genuinely dangerous. Venomous species existed on every continent. Getting bitten could mean death. So the brains that learned to notice spiders quickly, to react strongly, to stay away, we're living with those brains now. Got researchers tested this by trying to train people to fear different things. They found it was much easier to create fear responses to spiders, snakes, and faces showing anger, things with genuine evolutionary significance, than to flowers, mushrooms, or household objects. The fear of spiders isn't random. It has a kind of ancient logic to it. But here's where it gets interesting for modern humans. Because we still have this old wiring, but most of us live somewhere where spiders won't actually hurt us. So the brain is running an ancient program in a situation that no longer calls for it. Like getting a severe weather alert on your phone for a storm that happened 3,000 years ago. The system works. It's just working for a world that no longer exists. And for people with spider phobia, that mismatch between the alarm and the actual danger is exactly what's so maddening. They know it's a small spider. They know it probably can't hurt them. They can tell you all of that. And they still can't make the fear stop. Because the fear isn't coming from the thinking brain. It never was. Now here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Because most people frame spider phobia as this isolated thing. You see a spider, you panic, it passes, life goes on. But for people with a severe fear, it doesn't really work like that. The phobia starts leaking into everyday decisions in ways that are easy to miss. They stop going into certain rooms. They check corners before they sit down. They can't sleep if they think they saw something move in the dark. They scan surfaces before they put their hands on them. They leave outdoor events early. They avoid certain countries when they travel. They feel embarrassed, which means they start hiding it, which means they deal with it completely alone. And the hiding is actually what makes it worse, but psychologists have found that avoidance is the primary thing that keeps phobias alive. Every time you avoid the thing you're scared of, your brain records it as that was dangerous. Good thing we got out. The fear gets confirmed. It gets stronger. The radius of what feels safe gets smaller. There's something else too. People with spider phobia, especially the ones who have lived with it for years, often carry a quiet shame about it because the world treats phobias as funny, as irrational, as something you should just be able to get over, and that shame becomes its own weight because they're not being dramatic, they're not choosing to be afraid. Their nervous system is doing something it learned to do at a level they have no direct access to. And being laughed at or dismissed for it doesn't make the fear smaller. It just makes the person feel more alone inside it. The really important thing to understand for anyone who loves someone with this fear is that telling them to just calm down or that it's just a spider is the equivalent of telling someone with a broken leg to just walk it off. The information isn't useful. The system running the fear doesn't speak that language. So what do you do with all of this? If you have this fear yourself, the most important thing to understand is that it makes sense. Not because spiders are actually going to hurt you, but because something somewhere at some point taught your nervous system that they were, and that system has been trying to protect you ever since. The most effective treatment for spider phobia is something called exposure therapy. And before you close the video, it's not what you think. It's not being thrown into a room full of spiders. It's slow, controlled, gradual contact with the thing that's feared. Starting with a photo, then a drawing, then maybe a spider in a sealed container across the room. Moving at the pace your nervous system can handle. And the reason it works is because it's speaking the right language. Logic, not willpower, to experience that slowly updates what the brain has recorded as dangerous. The fear can change. It does change. The brain is not fixed. But maybe the most useful thing this video can leave you with is simpler than all of that, whether it's you or someone you love. The fear of spiders isn't a character flaw. It isn't weakness. It isn't something to be embarrassed about or laughed at. It's a nervous system that learned something once and hasn't been shown anything different yet. And that's actually very human. If this hits home for you, please subscribe. And if you want to keep going, the next video is going to feel just as familiar.